If you want to help out and support the channel, there are a few things you can do. Go check out Flipside Gaming and use the promo code VOIDMAGE in all caps. This will get you 10% off all orders $10 or more. And if you go shopping on tcgplayer.com, go use my affiliate link in the description below. That way all purchases you make will go towards helping the channel. And lastly, go check out my Patreon. It's a more direct way that you can help the channel while also getting some more interaction. I appreciate all of your support. If you haven't already, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Hello everyone, welcome back to another top 10 commander video, this time for Theros Beyond Death. Like most sets in recent history, we do have some decent commander support. Quite a few cards to experiment with this time. Maybe not the most creative cards, but you can expect to see cards from this set in commander like any other set. Starting it off here with honorable mentions, we have Perforos Bronze Blooded. I really like the sneak attack ability, and giving all of your other creatures haste is pretty nice. The fact that it is limited to red and artifact creatures does kind of bring it down a bit for me, but I think it's still going to be worth it for some decks. And there's Arasta of the Endless Web. Really interesting card here. If you love Spider Tribal, you have a spider that can help you make more spiders. If your opponents like to cast a bunch of instants and sorceries, you can take advantage of that. Even if you're just getting spiders and they're nothing too intimidating, you could build up a decent board presence. In the Calyx Destiny's Hand, I like the idea of a Planeswalker synergizing with a certain strategy, and we get another enchantment-focused Planeswalker. What I really like about Calyx is that its ultimate is pretty much a Replenish, which is a reserve list card. We're probably never going to see that again. The other abilities are average. I think the removal is nice, but again, if you want to throw this into an enchantment-focused deck, you have yet another focused Planeswalker for that strategy. So starting it off here with number 10, we have the cool legendary artifact equipment Shadow Spear. It's just 1 mana, and you can equip it for 2. Equipped creature gets +1/+1, has lifelink, and trample, and you can pay 1 mana, permanents your opponent's control, lose hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. This is such a great utility card because not only are you giving your creature 2 very good keywords for very little mana, you have a built-in ability that can make great blockers that are normally indestructible, lose indestructible, you make them killable, and you can do this ability whenever you feel like it. Also, not a bad equipment if you want to play more of a control deck. You want to get rid of hexproof and indestructible, because commanders like Narset are just a pain. Overall, a very easy to overlook card, but it's so cheap to put out there and equip to your creature. Even if you're just using it for good keywords, I think it's a valuable card for commander. Number 9 is Underworld Breach, kind of Red's version of Yawgmoth's Will, which means it's not going to be anywhere near as good, but you kind of get the idea. Escape is going to require you to exile other cards from your graveyard, so it's not going to be just a cast from your graveyard and then exile them when you're done. You have to have a pretty large graveyard to get a Yawgmoth's Will kind of impact. That being said, Red rarely has power like this, and especially in the graveyard, you do see some synergies with artifacts, but it's rarely ever going to just bring back cards in general, and I think it is cheap enough as an enchantment to get the job done in one turn. If you're playing some kind of Spellslinger deck or some kind of Storm deck, this might be something to look into. Number 8 is Leia Keen-Eyed. Very solid addition to creature decks. Cost reduction is valuable in commander. It's not ramp, but oftentimes it's actually better. If you have multiple creatures you can play in the same turn, you have to count up how much less mana you're actually paying. She also has an ability where you can pay 3 mana, and look at the top card of your library. If it's a creature card, you can just put it into your hand. Otherwise, you can put it into your graveyard. Now, it's not once per turn, so you could do this over and over again, making it a pretty easy sink for infinite mana. Number 7 is Thassa Deep Dwelling. Pretty much a cheaper Conjurer's Closet in blue. Even if it's just an indestructible enchantment, it's already a better Conjurer's Closet, which already sees a ton of play in Blink decks. The whole focus is getting multiple ETBs out of the same creatures. She should fit in quite well, an immediate upgrade for those decks, while also giving you the ability to tap creatures. I might take away a couple points here or there for a lack of creativity, but we know what this card is going to do. We've seen it before. This kind of ability is going to see play in commander. Number 6 is Dryad of the Elysian Grove. Getting additional land drops is now pretty common. Before, you only had a couple cards that did it, like Exploration, but now it seems in every other set we're getting it. What sets apart the Dryad is really making all of your lands every basic land type, so they can tap for whatever color. This is something that is so valuable, but not super great on its own, so it is nice that we can get an additional land drop that makes the card actually worth playing in a 5-color deck, whether it's for enchantment purposes, for land purposes. This is something that I can see being valuable in a wide variety of decks for different reasons. Number 5 is the NYX NYX Lotus, something I think is going to be an immediate inclusion in a lot of monocolored decks, especially in mono black, where we already have a ton of devastating devotion-related cards like Grey Merchant of Asphodel, and plenty of devotion on cards like Necropotence. If this is allowed to tap for a crazy amount of mana, you can dump all of that into something like an Exsanguinate or a Torment of Hailfire, and that's just mono black. You can obviously use this to supplement ramp in a weaker color like mono white. Obviously it's situational, you have to build up a board before you can use this, which might be counterintuitive for ramp cards. Usually you want to develop a board after you play your ramp, but like I said, if you're going for kill spells, a lot of those X-costed spells can win you games, and this has potential to tap for a bunch of mana. Number 4 is Hilliard Sun Crown, a definite improvement over its previous version from the original Theros. Here you get rewarded for life gain triggers by getting a +1/+1 counter on a creature or an enchantment, which means you can abuse the absolute hell out of it with things like Soul Warden, any kind of trigger where you can gain life, and you can have multiple cards similar to Soul Warden. That way you can get more +1/+1 counters, beefing up your board and dealing even more damage. Even if you don't have triggers like that, you have a way to give a creature lifelink with Hilliard's ability. So in a deck color where you're not going to see the best strengths, you can at least fortify good combat and keywords, and also have a synergy with +1/+1 counters. Remember, we also have Linden, which also synergize with lifelink, so multiple ways to trigger this card. Number 3 is Erebus Bleak Hearted. Kind of like Thassa Deep Dwelling, we already see this kind of ability. Things like Dark Prophecy, Midnight Reaper. While it is 2 life to draw a card this time, it's all about what you have it on. You have it on an indestructible enchantment creature that's probably going to be an enchantment for most of the time. You also have a way to kill a creature with his ability, while also giving some way to remove a creature. Card draw is one of the most important things in Commander. That's why it's constantly being debated in Magic the Gathering. What's better, Ancestral Recall or Black Lotus? To be honest, if you can do either one of them really well, your game's going to be very strong. With Erebus Bleak Hearted, you have potential in black of all colors that's capable of sacrificing so much to draw a crazy amount of cards. We also have a ton of ways in mono black to gain life back, so something like this is going to fit in well with a lot of similar cards. Not super creative, yes, but something that we already know is going to be powerful. And number 2 is Theros Shroud Veiled. Probably the most creative god out of the whole set, and he's not even in the main set, he's the buy a box promo. But what you have here is easily the most interesting thing that we haven't seen on a card before, or at least not a commander option. Killing and exiling creatures with coin counters on them and then bringing them back to your battlefield is just so powerful, because in black and white that's all your removal's going to be. Things like Swords to Plowshares, Merciless Eviction. If your opponent's creatures have a bunch of those coin counters on them, you can then steal them after you've board wiped. And since it's more of a permanent steal, this kind of deck is going to be easy to overwhelm with. If there's any kind of downside, it's that you won't be able to easily steal your opponent's commanders, because they're still going to have the option of putting them in the command zone. However, if that was the case, this would probably be one of the most busted cards in the whole set. But for what it does, at 6 mana, it's pretty fair, while still being incredibly fun. Can't wait to actually build this deck. I have a black and white bias, it's my favorite color pairing, but even just looking at it objectively, we have something special here that feels different enough as a commander option for a lot of people to explore. And the number 1 card from Theros Beyond Death, in my opinion, for commander, is Nyx Bloom Ancient, without a doubt. Mana doublers are just crazy. Nyx Bloom Ancient kind of takes that to the next level, where instead of just your lands tapping for additional mana, it's permanents. So your creatures that tap for mana, your Soul Ring, it produces 3 times as much of that mana instead. And the thing that really makes it cool is that it's 3 times. Most mana doublers are just going to provide you with an additional 1 of that mana. If you do tap for 2 mana with something like a Soul Ring, you're going to get 6 instead, which makes it well worth the 7 mana and the 3 green specifically that you have to pay. Might be a headache, but if you can keep it out there, that's just a ridiculous amount of mana to have. So let's just go down the list here. It's an enchantment creature, so you have enchantment synergies. It's an elemental, so you have elemental synergies, and it's most likely going to work out well if you have mana dorks or if you have lands, so look for it to see play in just about every deck that can play it. I mentioned how NYX Lotus could be powerful for X-costed spells. That goes double for this, because that's just way too much mana to have in a commander game, where if you can get it out soon enough, you can easily overwhelm your opponents. But anyway guys, that's going to do it for this video. Let me know what you think of Theros Beyond Death. Void here signing off. See you next video. Just wanted to say thanks to the patrons who are supporting me on patreon.com. Go check it out. There are different tiers with their own rewards. One of them is having your name in the credits of my videos. I know it's not much, but it's something that I can do to show my appreciation. Thanks again, and have a good day.